Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe comics podcast. Now, today we will be looking at the newly released G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, which came out at time of recording just this past Wednesday, which was May the 7th, 2025. Synopsis: Cobra, Defectors, when members of Cobra's elite Crimson Guard turn to the Joes for sanctuary. It's an opportunity for Snake Eyes, Scarlett, and their ninja team to eliminate the threat of Springfield once and for all. Or is it too good to be true? Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. Sometimes these synopses cannot be trusted. So I will not be talking about this on my own, though. However, as always, I'll be joined by my normal co-presenter. It's a Real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark, and hello, listeners and viewers.
Hello, Tim. Now, we are live, which means that people at time of recording can interact with us. So hello to those of you watching live, like Same Time Toys. What's good, everybody? So, Tim, you, for eagle-eyed viewers and people who can listen really, really well, you're in a different place.
The acoustics are different. I am in a different place. Rather than streaming from home, it made sense today for me to be at my store right after we finished recording. So I got here before we finished recording and set up my laptop, but the same microphone and the same very harsh lamp, which I have not fine-tuned, nor just bought the right kind of lamp for this. And I am actually under my store.
Wow. Are we able to just talk about the space that you're in a little bit? What's surrounding you?
It's funny. I'm a little embarrassed. It feels like I've invited you into my home, and I didn't make the bed or fold the blanket on the couch. Well,
I can see long boxes over your right hand.
Yes, in the back of the store are these are actually short boxes. I find long boxes a little hard to deal with, particularly if they're full of modern comics, because that makes them too heavy. These are short boxes of issues that will go into bargain sets in the future. Many of them are issues that were new 6 months ago or a year ago, and they needed to be moved away, and they'll go back to the store later, as back issues, maybe priced up a little, maybe priced down. And on the bookcases behind me are some graphic novels that we will donate to schools or libraries. And directly behind my head is a pile of crap, which is every mini poster I've made for the last 2 years of events. Rather than put them in a neat pile or a portfolio or a filing cabinet, I just throw them in a pile of crap. And then over my left shoulder,
I can recognize that shape and graphic.
Is a Skybound G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, complete compendium hardcover box set. This is the G.I. Joe edition, and it is sitting on 2 more that are still in their shipping boxes. Wow. And they are for sale. So the easiest way is to just show up and hand us money. The price is a little bit up from the campaign, the crowdfunding campaign price, but I do feel like it is fair market price. I did some checking, and I guess we'd ship them, but shipping would be a lot if you really need it and you're not near Boston. The lighting down here is not as beautiful as my space at home, and again, I'll just mention my harsh lamp.
I wish I could do that. I've got the light of my Snake Eyes mask, which illuminates.
This Snake Eyes mask. Okay, for people listening, what illuminates and what era is this mask from?
This, I believe, is Snake Eyes the movie merchandise. I think I could be wrong, and it's an Arashikage logo which illuminates on Snake Eyes' forehead, as we all know, Tim. per his normal regular outfit. The glowing
I think
Arashikage forehead light.
this reminds me of season 1 and season 2 of Transformers, where Autobots and Decepticons randomly would have special abilities. Like they all came with guns that did things. Like their weapons would, like, according to their tech specs, would like shoot radio waves or make ice cubes, like shoot freezing precipitate. But like there's just some episode where someone like taps their forehead and that's their communications device, or like taps their chest and that's their communications device. Or throughout More Than Meets the Eye, parts 1, 2, and 3, Autobots just trade their hand in for grappling hooks and energy weapons, and that's awesome. But yeah, just randomly Snake Eyes taps his forehead and talks into the radio. That is his.
I can't remember.
forehead.
It might just be a light.
Anyway, G.I. Joe. We talking about G.I. Joe today?
Yeah, we're talking about G.I. Joe. So plots, mission debriefing, I'm calling this. So it's all of the stuff from last time. So of course, this episode we're all about G.I. Joe issue 316, released on May the 7th. But before we get to that, a couple of bits of news. So Mark Pennington has revealed his cover to After Action Report. What are we calling this? The After Action Report.
Is the campaign, the Kickstarter campaign is running right now, right?
It's right now. It's already been funded. So anything news gravy. It's the Command Files Volume 2, the sequel to Command Files Volume 1, which Josh very kindly sent me just the other day. So it's a magnificent cover from Mark Pennington that will be on the front of their book, Command Files Volume 2, which is on Kickstarter right now. So Mark Pennington, of course, being one of the mid-era G.I. Joe designers. So I probably designed a lot of the characters on this front cover. In fact, and I think he did Storm Shadow version 2 with the urban camo, probably Shockwave there, a few of the others.
Yes, the irony is that Pennington designed Hasbro G.I. Joe action figures and then went into comics, and I think officially has not drawn any G.I. Joe comics. I don't think he's inked any G.I. Joe material for Marvel or IDW or Skybound.
I don't believe so.
Or Devils do. No,
I think, in terms of actual printed, published comics, I don't think we've actually seen him, which seems like an egregious omission, which somebody should fix.
At the same time, when he broke into comics, he was soon inking obscure comics like Spawn and X-Men. So maybe a good reason to not get around to inking G.I. Joe, at least for Marvel.
Yes, I noticed his name as being the inker on Ghost Rider 2099, penciled by Chris Bacalo and inked by Mark Pennington. And I thought, has Mark Buckingham changed his surname? But anyway, that was just my mind. So that's that. I also wanted to highlight some of the Silent Mission toy adaptations, because we're just at the end of Silent Mission month. It was a marathon, sort of covering those 5 issues, one week at a time, but some on top of everything else, but somehow we did it. So Mark has done so I'm not so discerning yet, but Mark, can I do the pronunciation well? Mark Van Leeuwen has created 3 kind of toy recreations of the Silent Missions books, and I just posted the links to those on our Facebook group just today. So if you've not seen them, head on over to the Facebook group, where you can see his adaptation of the Roadblock Silent Mission book, as well as Spirit and the Jinx one.
Can we just talk for a moment? When we spoke with Andrew Cronky about the Silent Roadblock issue, there was an invented Cobra transport vehicle. Mm-hmm. Can you flip back one page, Mark? And I see here that it looks like in this photo diorama that's been sort of recreated in toy form as the mobile command center, but painted like a Cobra vehicle.
Yeah, painted
Is that
black
what I'm seeing?
with a Cobra logo on stuff. And
that's fun.
It even has 1 point roadblock ripping off the door of the transport. So a lot of fun.
I wonder if that reads as less unrealistic in toy photo diorama form to some viewers, listeners, readers than it does in printed comic book form.
There we go. That was that. Head on over to the Talkie Joe Facebook group if you want to see would find the links to that. So what else is going on? David T. Allen posted about Joe Fest with an interview with the organizer Ed Schumacher, and on that interview, he did reveal that certain two people called Mark and Tim will be interviewing Larry Hama at the Larry Hama panel at Joe Fest. So if you're there, you could see us and Mr. Hama in person. Fingers crossed.
Good. Yes. Fingers crossed. Good news, everyone. We are definitely going to ask Mr. Hama all of the questions he's been asked many times before, such as how did you get the G.I. Joe gig? What is your favorite issue? / tell us about issue 21, the silent issue. And something MASH. Actually, let's ask him about his acting career. Maybe we'll do that.
And before we get stuck in, shout out to Infinite Entertainment. So he is very excited to watch the show as it is his first new issue of A Real American Hero after doing a marathon read through, I think from the start, issue 1 back through to the present day. So now he's caught up and he's living in the present day. So congrats.
That's going to be hard because when you have 300 and some issues plus spin-offs that you can read as fast as you can read them, you never run out of comics, and then all of a sudden you have to wait 4 weeks for each new issue. Speaking of weeks, let's just Mark referred to a marathon a moment ago. Let's just acknowledge that this past Wednesday, with the release of A Real American Hero 316, we are at the end of it's like a celestial event. I feel like this was a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse at the same time. All the planets lined up where this has never happened before. We had 7 issues of G.I. Joe released in 7 weeks, because last month there was A Real American Hero. Technically 2 months ago by the calendar, there's Real American Hero 315. And then the month of April had 5 Wednesdays, and there were 5 wordless issues by other creative teams, giving Mr. Hama a break and not our wallets. And then week 7 out of 7, this new issue back on the ARAH schedule, Real American Hero 316. So now all of us will go through a kind of withdrawal, not just Infinite Entertainment. We've sure gotten used to more G.I. Joe episodes to record. I mean, issues to read than we can handle.
Yeah.
Anything, Mark, maybe there's other things you haven't been doing the last 7 weeks that you can finally catch up on, like reading other comics or the dishes.
so many dishes. Yeah, sort of, my children don't recognize me anymore. It's worrying. Right. So we are talking today about G.I. Joe Real American Hero issue 316. It is brought to us by a creative team that we recognize: writer Larry Hama, penciler Paul Peleteier, inker Tony Kordos, colorist Francesco Segala, with flatter Sabrina Del Grosso, letterer Pat Brousseau, editor Alex Antone, rhymes with phone, publication design Jillian Crabb, production design Richard Mercado, and creative consultant Diana Davis. Now, this is the return of penciler Paul Peleteier. Am I doing that right, Tim? I think it's Tia rhymes with Pia.
Yes, Peleteier. Or tier rhymes with tier. Like different
tiers.
Mark, different tiers, different Paul Pelleteirs of a Kickstarter campaign.
So many issues of G.I. Joe, it brings you to tiers. And so this is Paul Pelleteier's second tour of duty at G.I. Joe. So essentially we had Chris Mooneyham doing the first arc, Paul Peleteier coming and doing the second arc, Chris Mooneyham coming back for the third, and now we're basically on the fourth. and he's back.
This is really fun. This has a particular feeling. This reminds me of Adam Kubert when he launched Ultimate X-Men in 2000. He did the first 4 issues, and then actually Andy Kubert did 5 and 6. And then there was, Adam Kubert came back for a few issues, and then there was an arc by someone else, and then he came back for a few issues, and then there were some issues drawn by someone else, and then I think one more time he came back for a few issues. Same thing happened on Ultimate Fantastic Four. He did the first arc and then the third arc. When Uncanny X-Men was going bi-weekly in, I think 1987 or thereabouts, or maybe more than when it was going bi-weekly. Mark Silvestri and Rick Leonardi were alternating issues, and it's really fun to have not just an editor who can plan for an arts team to take a break and have another good art team take over, but it's not consistent if someone draws 5 issues and then someone else draws 5 issues. But within that, there's a lot of consistency. And then to have these two creative teams recur and come back each for a second time, by the time this 4th arc is over, we'll have had 5 soft covers worth of new G.I. Joe comics from Skybound, won all these wordless issues by a cornucopia of talent, and then alternating 2 from Mooneyham and 2 from Peleteier and Kordos. And that just has a really nice feeling. I don't fault Mooneyham or Peleteier if after these current issues, they go off and do something else and don't come back. I would have confidence that editor Alex Antone would get someone and some people good to come in and keep the schedule going and keep the quality high. But Mooneyham said to us in our interview with him that he'd like to stay as sort of long as he can. And Paul Peleteier seems to be up to the challenge of this very hard to draw book. So, readers like consistency.
And the streams might even cross a little bit further because Chris Mooneyham mentioned that he was talking to Tony Kordos about the possibility of someone else inking him even. So that would be even more of a bringing the two teams together.
Right.
Scotty Cameron, shout out to Scotty, says, I met Paul at a local Comic Con and he told me to look out for this one because it was his return to ARAH. And indeed, we've known about this return for a little while, even in advance of the official solicits, because I think it was Tony Kordos sort of did a little post on his Facebook showing that he was working on ARAH once more. So there we go. Next up, let's have a look at those things, what they stick on the front of these books.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A is drawn by Andy Kubert and colored by Laura Martin. This is a little unusual because there are no guns or swords on this cover, but also there's a framing device. There's a compositional device to this cover. We are outside and we are looking at Snake Eyes, who is inside, and between us is a window with window panes. Some of the drawing and some of the coloring creates the effect of the reflection, what we see behind us. We see what's behind us. We see what Snake Eyes sees. So Snake Eyes is in a suburban house behind a window, putting on a Crimson Guardsman jacket, which I guess clarifies something that I have never wondered. Is the Crimson Guardsman jacket a jacket or a long sleeve shirt? It is a jacket. And above and beside him are curtains with a floral pattern. And I appreciate Andy Kubert for drawing them and not just leaving it to a talented color artist to, comp them in, like in some repeated pattern. Part of that reflection is a church and 4 or so, 2-level suburban houses. And then this visual motif we keep coming back to, which is the Welcome to Springfield sign. Mark, help me count. We've seen that in one original Marvel G.I. Joe cover. Is that issue? I always do this. Issue 9. And then I think this is the 4th time we've seen it, or a version of it, smashed, in this case, backwards in a reflection in the Skybound run.
Yeah, I did do the the fact check of how many times this has actually appeared in the Skybound run. And so you said, Tim, you said 4, and I can tell you that you were right. It is the 4th appearance. The Welcome to Springfield sign appeared on 305, 308, and 311. That's, I think, Cobra Commander sort of striding down Springfield, the Dreadnoks smashing through the sign, and also, I think, a Cobra army sort of marching over it. So in sort of various forms of the sign being there and destroyed. So a 4th appearance in a handful of issues. So it's something that definitely Andy Kubert loves. Potentially that that church and the houses in this view could be a reflection, or it could be a mini diorama on the window ledge. You never know.
Wow.
I did notice actually that on the credits to the book, it looks like the credits for colours are to Brad Anderson, which I am assuming is a typo on the inside front cover, and it should be Laura Martin once again.
Huh, that's interesting. The cover, right. I was just assuming, because we know that Brad Anderson is exclusive to Ghost Machine, which is an imprint at Image. He's coloring Redcoat and Geiger and some other stuff, many of which are written by Jeff Johns, but it's not the Jeff Johns imprint. And when he has colored covers, I think he has signed them, but I think also Laura Martin signed her covers the last few months with the name Laura. So I actually don't know now who really colored this.
It was definitely solicited as Laura Martin.
Okay.
So I think it is more likely than not that it's just an error on the credits on the inside front cover.
Based on the palette, this does not look like Brad Anderson, and this does not look like Tamara Bonvillain, who colored a cover or two between these other cover colorists. Okay, so something interesting here in the color treatment. The green of these floral window curtains is pretty sort of desaturated and pasty, a little mint, and in the old sort of visual language of comics, Superman's hair is colored blue because that was sort of the easiest for the color artists and the separators to do, and the inkers had already done their job inking his hair. So your brain tells you that his hair is black, even though the white spaces between the black ink is colored blue. I sometimes think about sort of what's like actual black and what's kind of black in costuming and hair and objects. Like little kids always, when they draw the road with Crayola markers, they always color it black with a black marker. But if you look at the road outside your apartment or home, it's probably not like dark midnight black. Anyway, here the black of Snake Eyes is a different black than the black of the Crimson Guardsman gloves. And I would really like the Crimson Guardsman gloves to be not this sort of middle gray blue, but at the same time, I understand what's happening here, which is you need to visually differentiate Snake Eyes from his disguise.
Yeah.
Fun cover. It's not, I wouldn't say weird, but it is unusual. What is neat about it is that even though it's just a guy standing there looking cool, right? It asks a question. And there have been very neat Andy Kubert covers for this series, which have been very cool drawings of very cool characters that don't ask a question. And my general preference is that the cover asks a question and the issue answers it. The question here being, why is Snake Eyes going in disguise as a bad guy? Or what is Snake Eyes doing in Springfield?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely sort of, I love it when you have a cover that's connected to the interior of the book. And this isn't an unusual cover, and it's not one that would never ever sort of be drawn on spec without really being told. You wouldn't be like, okay, I'll just draw Snake Eyes, and he's getting dressed up as a Crimson Guardsman, and there's going to be this sort of fussy sort of curtains around him. So it's definitely just one of these covers that you would never get unless you were trying to connect it back to the events of a particular issue. So it's great from that perspective. So we get this in black and white as the cover B, open to order, and then you've got the 1 in 10 cover camouflage variant by Francis Portela.
This is Dawn Marino in her G.I. Joe costume. The dominant color here is black. The black of her costume becomes the black of the background. There are little bits of red on the sort of ribbing of her costume. There's her skin tone, and then there's the sort of dark gray of her straps and bands, and the light gray of her swords. This is a really nice pose. There's a twist to her spine, and the weight, her weight is definitely all on one leg, but her shoulders are reading as straight. She is relaxed, right? Look at her head. Her head is tilting just a little bit forward, and she's resting a sword on her left shoulder, but she's ready to kill you because there's 10 in her right arm, and that lower sword, the one in the front, is ready to slash or whip upward.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Right. And the artist Francis Portela also sort of shared a bit of a process image on his Instagram as well. So just on the screen at the moment, it's the kind of black and the digital inked rough sort of outlining the composition before he starts getting into the detail.
Hey, Alex Antone, how can we get Francis Portela to draw a whole issue of G.I. Joe? Alex Antone does not listen to the show, so I'm just asking into the void.
I'm pretty sure on occasion he has, just to make sure that we're behaving.
I think he might listen to an episode just before we interview him for an episode, so he knows who we are and what we do.
Okay. We do have a retailer variant, just one for this cover, which is... Oh, hold on. Who's that we see on front of the cover? Is it someone that we've seen on a cover before?
Why are there so many covers of Baroness? 'Cause she's on the other side.
You get the idea. So this is Baroness, as drawn by Cedric Poulat, but for 616 Comics. I believe this comes in 2 varieties. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's sort of playing on this sort of vintage bomber nose art kind of style. So it's not just a standard kind of pin-up. It is quite playful. It's illustrated very nicely, and I do like this one. I think it's a lot of fun, even if it's a bit cheesy.
We should say that it's not just in the style of nose art. It does include the curved metal surface as if it is on a plane,
like it's a photo of a plane or something.
Yeah, as if it's a photo of a plane. And if Baroness here is finger quotes too sexy, or the innuendo is like not a good fit for G.I. Joe, I think, Mark, what you were kind of just saying, and I agree with you, it is earned here because this is a motif you'd see in nose art, in aviation, painted insignia, a lady straddling a bomb in a phallic way, and it's fun, and yes, it's drawn and colored really nicely. Mm-hmm. This is not an artist that I'm familiar with. Should we talk about the issue?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's dig into the events of this issue with a plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
A Crimson Guard, Steve 241, and his family arrive at Camp Greer in Utah to defect from Cobra. Mindbender arrives at Revanche HQ in Baton Rouge, offering Alpha 001 his brainwave and Serpentor technology in exchange for assistance and a dose of the mutant antidote. He is to be given the full treatment. At Cobra Island, the Cobra Casino vacationers are brainwashed to forget their traumas. At Scotland, Baroness thinks about taking revenge on their new houseguest, Cobra Commander. Back in Utah, the ninja team arrive for a mission briefing. They are to insert themselves in Springfield to collect intel, disguised as the family of Steve 241. In Springfield, an Iron Grenadier is doing a recce of the residential homes and notes the disappearance of the Steve 421 CG family. And also arriving back at Camp Greer is the Cobra Island recon team. They're told they're going to have to turn around and head back to Cobra Island for their next mission. Tim.
So in the last issue, or maybe all the issues of Silent Missions, and maybe in the solicit for this issue, or maybe in the tease in the previous issue, this was advertised as a good jumping on point. And it is the first issue of a new story arc, right? That Larry Hama G.I. Joe doesn't really have story arcs, but because Skybound wants to put a certain number of issues into a softcover trade paperback, there are kind of story arcs. And we've got these artists who are lining up roughly with these starts and stops. So I was wondering when I got into this issue, is this a good jumping on point? Because you maybe want a sense of what just happened, want some setup for a bunch of new stuff, want some character introductions, or some kind of hook. And it is a good jumping on point. The status quo. I also think some of it is going to take a reader, if this is their first issue of G.I. Joe, other issues of reading to figure out, because there's this brief conversation between Destro and Cobra Commander, and then there's a really loaded scene that comes after it, which is in some ways very G.I. Joe and in other ways unusual for comics. So it is a jumping on point. I think it's a pretty good jumping on point. I think a lot of Larry Hama issues are good jumping on points because he always has his characters introduce each other by name, and he often has 2 or 3 lines of dialogue where someone just explains the status quo. It's not like, welcome back, turn around, you have to go back to Cobra Island. It's welcome back from Cobra Island, you have to turn around and go back to Cobra Island. If you don't know who Sean is, if you don't know who Throwdown is, Stalker gives you a little bit more information. And again, Hama does this with dialogue and not with captions, because he doesn't want to write captions, and he has never wanted to write captions. And then the other, Mark, too.
I was going to say, I think it is a kind of definitely a new starting point, and it does feel like we've sort of, we've got this divide between the previous, let's say 15, but also the previous 10 before that at IDW. There is a bit of a new starting point and a new story and a kind of a reset from the Cobra Casino arc and the mutant Genghis Khan kind of arc that we've got to up to here. But in terms of it being a jumping on point, that sort of, I guess, suggests a little bit more of accessibility than perhaps we've got here, because there is definitely, while it's a new start and we're not continuing along a lot of those previously established threads, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of characters, and most of those are sort of some sort of continuation of things that have come before. So this Crimson Guard seeking asylum, you kind of have to know what a Crimson Guard is. It helps that you know that they've escaped because of this mutant invasion. Mindbender, arriving at Cobra Island and seeing Revanche. You've got, what's Revanche? What's a Mindbender? Why is he a mutant? Why does he need an antidote? What are these casino goers who've just had a vaccine and are now getting brainwashed? Why is Cobra Commander in Destro's house? Who's Sean? Why are these ninjas coming back from the pit?
Why is Cobra Commander not wearing a mask?
Yeah. Which goes back even further, and then the Cobra Island recon team. Where have they come from? Why are they going back again? So it's a start, but it's also very much looking back to what's immediately come before.
The other thing that strikes me about this issue is that there are several pages that deal with directly or indirectly the cleanup in Springfield, and also just the after effects of an invasion, of a bad guy invasion of a small bad guy town. And I feel like this scene on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, oh no, 14, 15, 16, 17, page 17, where Paul Peleteier, I'm just going to say it, has a little hard time drawing the stinger. Proportions are a little bit off, but you know what? I don't draw the stinger. Stinger's hard to draw. This is a hard book to draw. But anyway, we get 2 whole pages of 2 representatives from Destro's faction, a soldier and a sort of, management officer or intelligence officer driving through the wreckage. There's that broken Springfield sign. And, there's smoke in the background, and they're talking specifically about empty houses and who may or may not come back. And I feel like, I know I say this every episode, this is something that I think Larry Hama is going to write in a G.I. Joe comic that a lot of writers aren't going to write in a lot of other comics. Certainly if you read, a superhero, the Justice League goes to attack the Legion of Doom or vice versa. And, one group leaves their headquarters and then the other group moves in, or a different villain group takes over the villain's headquarters. We do see that kind of thing, but there's this very specific line, which is the kind of nuts and bolts that I appreciate Larry Hama's sort of thinking through. Maybe you should do it because I won't get the accent, but the guy in the kilt who's not the Crimson Guardsman. I'll do the first word balloon. Maybe you can do the next one. He was a Crimson Guard, known within Cobra circles as CGs, and he continues.
CGs are fanatics. They even go as far as having plastic surgery to look like everybody else in their series. You'd think he'd be the last to desert.
And then the Crimson, very good, thank you. I cannot do that. And then the Crimson, Iron Grenadier says, but still a man of conscience, since he put the welfare of his family above other loyalties. Put them on the maybe list. They just might come back. Now, Hama is writing that because he's already created for himself a problem he might need to solve. He's got some Joes who are going to go undercover as this family, and he's giving them the leeway to show up and not be questioned or not be questioned too much. So it is maybe not self-fulfilling, but it is sort of taken care of. But at the same time, I'm thinking of like Magneto on Asteroid M, or like Jigsaw abandoning some warehouse full of guns in a Punisher comic. And I just can't imagine a scene quite like this. And it speaks to the sort of grounded real worldness of G.I. Joe, despite there being a mad scientist talking to an AI collective intelligence while getting zapped and handing over his hypnosis machinery.
And it also creates a little bit of tension. So it gives them, the Joes, room to come back because they say they've been gone, but maybe they'll come back, and they seem to be accepting of that. But it also gives a little bit of tension that they're paying attention to who's there and who's not as well. So they might be checked up on when they are in situ.
Yes. Since Stalker points out that Sean will play a specific role in this disguise infiltration scenario with the 4 Joe ninjas pretending to be a Cobra family, it reminds me that 2 or so issues ago in the letters page, editor Alex Antone said, don't worry, Larry's got plans for Throwdown. Larry's going to be doing something with Sean. He's got a role. And I think that happened right around, did we, 2 issues ago, Mark, did we see Sean at the front gate of Joe headquarters, welcoming the team back at Fort Wadsworth in New York?
It was, last mission, the last issue, sorry, just as the ninjas were returning from Springfield, they reunited with Sean back at
and if I'm remembering correctly, he was out front, sort of by the gate.
Maybe I can't remember. I can't remember at what point they joined up. But okay. Someplace in that. What he was doing wasn't all that interesting, and I think you and I thought, well, we hope his new role will be more active than just hanging out at the base and saying hello. So those are my 2 sort of big
reactions to this issue. Mark, did you have any big reactions, or do you want to get into some specific scenes?
My big reaction was that we were back to the type of issue that we've not seen for a little while. So quite often what we've noted that when we're looking at G.I. Joe is that Hama is sort of juggling multiple plot points and scenes and characters within an issue, and sometimes that can be quite condensed, just like a page or two for one of these scenes. And more recently, we've seen a story where a lot of those threads have all converged together, so all of the characters are in the same place, broadly doing the same thing. Like Destro taking on Cobra Commander under the Cobra base in Springfield or something like that. That was sort of very focused in on a particular plot point and a particular set of characters and a particular scene. Whereas here we've got again, we're sort of opening it out again to establish different plots, an A plot, a B plot, whatever. So we've got camp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main locations. I think we've got the G.I. Joe base pit under Camp Greer in Utah, where we've got Duke and we've got the Crimson Guard defectors, and we've got the Joes coming back. We've also got a reference to the other Joe base, even if we're not there, in Fort Wadsworth. So I'll count that as half a location. Then we've got the Revanche HQ in Baton Rouge, where Mindbender arrives to get his antidate and full treatment. Then we're at Cobra Island with the Cobra Casino and the Vacationers there. We're at Scotland with Destro, his castle, and Cobra Commander and Baroness. And then we're also in Springfield in the sort of the ruins in the aftermath of the previous mutant invasion. So juggling quite a few plot points, quite a few scenes. So it's one of those different issues that we often get. Yeah.
Can I do a fact check? We are in Baton Rouge. The Vacationers, we don't go back to Cobra Island in this issue. The Vacationers are in Baton Rouge.
Oh, are they? I'm
right?
not sure. No, I don't think they are, because I think the Vacationers. Well, when Alpha 001 is talking to Mindbender, he's doing it via a hologram. And you can see that they're in a place.
Oh, they're by a swimming pool.
Yeah. And it's
right,
sunny,
in a hotel.
Yeah. So
Alpha
001 and the Vacationers are still on Cobra Island.
Right, sure. Okay, so the only captions Hama uses are quick location changes, like Camp Greer, Utah, right, or Baton Rouge, and then you turn the page, and there isn't one that says Cobra Island, Gulf of Mexico, because on the previous page, Mindbender starts to talk. You turn the page and he finishes talking, but he's talking, yes, from this hologram or heads-up display projection. So yes, right, you are.
And in that conversation, Alpha 001 says, "We are doing a clean sweep on all Cobra influences here on Cobra Island." So he sort of establishes through that dialogue that they are in Cobra Island. Some of these issues can feel a bit like not much is happening, because you're just seeing a couple of panels here, a couple of panels there, and within the Camp Greer location, you've also got these two different plot, subplots. You've got the ninja team being set up with the CGs, but then you've also got the recon team arriving and then turning around and heading back out again as well. So it's sort of establishing this sort of new status quo and the pieces that are in flight, and this major new plot point of the Joes heading back to Springfield. So I imagine through the next issues, probably the spotlight will largely focus on that ninja team, but I guess with breathing room for all of these other plots as well.
Even split, I'm guessing 6 pages in Springfield with Joe's in disguise, 6 pages, not all together, broken up, with the recon team. I mean, the next cover does spotlight Mindbender, so we're gonna probably follow him. Some other things I was struck by with this issue, that the world of the Crimson Guardsmen expands again, because during the Marvel run, there was just Fred. There was just the Fred series. And we had Fred the Second, and then we had Fred the Seventh. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it was until the IDW continuation that additional Crimson Guards men and women were named as being other series. And forgive me, I forget what they are, but the Michael series and the Barbara series, and Barbara 993.
And I think during that big what's it, Cobra something,
Cobra World Order, they sort of opened up with lots of different Fred names, but in the 220s.
And then obviously we had Laura as the female Cobra Crimson Guard towards the end of the run. But I think you might be right that during the Marvel run they tended to refer to them as Freds, like when the original Cobra Commander was dug up, and that was done by other Fred series CGs, and there was also a Fred. Another different Fred back in the IDW, not a Fred, a different name for the Crimson Guardsman that moved into Sean's old family home when he visited back there as well. There was another Crimson Guard family. Right. So yeah, we've seen a few, but yeah, the different naming convention is a more recent phenomenon, let's say.
And then every time we see this one is named and numbered in this issue. And, when it was like, well, there's 7 or 8 Freds, but because, they're in every town or they have fully populated Springfield, you start to imagine, I guess, as a kid, there are dozens or hundreds. But, Hama is saying now through these comics that there are not hundreds, but, thousands, tens of thousands. I've been paying attention to Francesco Segala's colors in these issues since we spoke to Chris Mooneyham about working with this color artist, and since we spoke to Andrew Kroenke, who drew an issue and then a silent issue very recently, working with this color artist. And these colors, this still feels like the same color artist, and this still feels like the same style, and it does still feel like the same palette. But I feel like if this issue, 316 and the previous issue, 314, 315, if you compare these to the first 3, 5, 8 issues, 301 and up, there were more bright colors, purples and greens. And Segala, I think, has, in working with these artists and either listening to them or, making suggestions, is pulling things back. And this issue, if you look at pages 2 and 3 and you squint, there are a lot of different colors, but they're all muted. The red of the Crimson Guardsman jacket on page 2, where the CG is opening up his jacket to reveal his Crimson Guardsman uniform. That is not bright Spider-Man shiny red like the covers of Spider-Man right now. That is a sort of a dull orange red, and it's still a really handsome book. I do miss some of the sort of more drastic shifts in color from one scene to another, and I'm very aware of how muted this is, but it's still quite handsome. I just think I'm seeing an evolution of the book, and it makes me a tiny bit sad, but it's still a great looking book. Segala's still a great color artist. I'm still very, very happy. While I'm talking about color, I'll just file a very small complaint that's on pages 4 and 5, 3, 4, and 5. Alpha 001's word balloons, which are in a green lettering. I think that green is a little too light, and I would like it to be a little darker. And it can still have the sort of squared off corners. It can still have the little lightning bolts tail. It can still have the little wiggles to show that, he's a robot and he's speaking through a speaker across a great distance or whatever. They can still be italicized. I just think that the green's a little too light.
Yeah, it's something that sometimes can look a bit different on screen as well versus in print. And I think it's one of my bigger complaints of the Skybound era is potentially some of the text color choices, particularly in the letters pages.
The letters pages.
Where you've got,
say it again with me in sync.
The letters
pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Energon universe, there's Void Rivals and Transformers. It's like light yellow.
Yeah, a light yellow background with a slightly darker yellow print of the text, and it's like I can't read it. I love letters pages, and it's quite frustrating that it's just a struggle just to read it. So anyway, that's what
I think someone did write in and say, "Hey, these are a little hard to read."
I couldn't read
like,
that.
Yeah, we'll fix it.
I couldn't read it. So. It's a really interesting observation about the colors that it has sort of had gradually shifted, and maybe it's a little bit closer to that roadblock issue that we just saw, where we noticed that some of the it felt like some the dial had been toned down a little bit, that we're seeing maybe slightly more local color rather than some of the visual flares, and we're seeing a lot less of the crunchiness of like the Ben-Day dot type effects and that kind of stuff. It's looking a little bit more like a regular comic book with a slightly less exaggerated color. A little
smoother and less of those old school textures.
Indeed. So should we talk about some of the plot points? So let's start with the beginning of the issue. So we've got Crimson Guardman, Steve 241 and his family arriving in Camp Greer to defect or seek asylum, and the Joes grasping onto this and looking to swap them out with a ninja team to do some recon and disguising with the family. And sort of what I liked about that aspect is kind of how they described how the Joes would fit in. So, for example, they had the grandfather there who's a bit more infirm and not speaking, so that would be a good match for Sean, who's mute, unlike the returned original Snake Eyes, who now can speak, and making use of their rubber masks, and I guess emphasizing that they are used to that. So what did you think of this particular plot point and the promise that it would bring with it?
I thought it was cool. It's fun to, 1977 Star Wars, Luke and Han disguised as stormtroopers, and they made toys out of that. I'm all for, good guys disguising as bad guys to infiltrate bad guy place.
And they had an Agent Faces toy as well, which was a mail away. Crimson Guardsman, take off his hat and then helmet, I think they call them. And then he's got, it's the G.I. Joe disguise guy, and he's got like a black goatee and stuff like that. So this was mid 2000s, I guess.
Yeah, about 2000, maybe 2004 or 5. I just want to point out one little art thing as a nod of appreciation for Paul Pelletier's hard work. The very first 2 panels of this whole issue, where Spirit Iron Knife is holding binoculars and then lowers them, Pelletier draws the entire background both times. He doesn't copy and paste in the computer and then, draw the hand differently in the second panel. And it's just a small thing. People probably don't notice it one way or the other. I always like it when artists redraw the whole thing if the, quote, camera stays in the same position. I like G.I. Joe cameos, so it's fun to see Sherlock and Law and Order on that first page. I mean, technically, Spirit gets a cameo on this first page. And then I realized something on this first page, which is... All right, so I laughed out loud. My wife said, "What?" when I laughed out loud at the third word balloon of the entire comic book. Plates are from same state as Springfield, right? So Spirit is going to not tell you what state Springfield is in. He's just going to say that this car is from the state that Springfield is in, that the Cobra G.I. Joe Springfield is in. And I chuckled because that's not how anyone would say it naturally, but it's sort of like, Ghost Rider. You can't say his name, so you have this verbal acrobatics to get around saying it. Friend of mine who flies that plane. And then when you turn the page, okay, I know. And then this third word balloon, the one that I just read, right? So except for the fact that they accidentally sort of revealed a couple issues ago where Springfield actually is, although I feel like that's a mistake and it sort of didn't count. But let's say we still don't know what state Springfield is in. But I've always argued it's not in any of the corners. It's not Washington State, Maine, Florida, or California. It's certainly not Alaska and Hawaii, right? So it's in the middle, or it's left of middle and right of middle. But I do think we now know that it's not in Utah because we're in Utah when he says this, and you wouldn't say it that way. Anyway, so I sort of, then I chuckled to myself like, one more state we know it's not in, although I kind of guessed Utah was one of the ones it wasn't in. So that's my thoughts about the first page.
And are you looking forward to the prospect of a return to Springfield with the ninjas in disguise?
Yes and no. I feel like there is some sort of being in a place and then going back there immediately in Hama's writing, which there's so many other places to go that we've never been, or places we haven't been back to in a long time. And we have just spent a lot of time in Springfield. So just on a base level, no, I don't want to go back to Springfield. But in terms of sort of the mechanics of plot, it makes a lot of sense that with some of the houses destroyed and many of the families there feeling unsafe, they would leave and the Joes would see an opportunity. Maybe it'd be fun if some other characters who we haven't seen in a long time go there, if they're the ones that see that opportunity. But I'm really delighted by this, this notion that a Crimson Guardsman is defecting to the Joes. This is not where Larry Hama finally introduces Mercer. This is, this guy I'm sure is not going to become a named character. This is not like Laura where, this guy's not going to stick around for a couple issues and we're going to get to know him and he's going to sort of help and betray even more. This is just, I bet this is his first of 2 appearances. We'll see him next issue for a page talking to Duke and Psych Out and Mainframe in front of some computers underground. That's totally fine. But I'm glad I didn't read the solicit for this issue, because that plot summary you did at the very top of the episode, right, that gives away this fun surprise on the second page. I was a Crimson Guard. I'm willing to swap intel for protection. And his body language as he leans forward and sheepishly, shows his sort of dangerous costume. So neat.
It's funny you say that you've got this Joe team, the ninjas, sort of coming back to the pit and then turning around again and going back where they came from, because we see a very similar concept there with the other Joe team who have just come back from Cobra Island as the recon team, and they're told that they have to turn. They've just arrived. Literally, as they arrive, they're told that they have to turn around and head back to Cobra Island for their next mission. But I do quite like the way that it got handled, because they sort of describe it as being, they're the experts. They're the ones with the most recent intel, so they're the ones who are best prepared to deal with the situation. They describe that somewhere on the.
We're now talking about the scene at the end of the book.
Yeah, that's it. They said
pages 19 and 20.
Yeah, well, Bill, whoa, where are we even going? Stalker says, Cobra Island, back where you came from. The T readers want human intelligence, and there's no time to brief a new team. So those are the lucky fellas and gal who get to turn around and go again.
And here's why I like that. It's a little darkly funny, because Hama is depicting the Joes as, the Joes are assigned and moved around at the whims of their superiors. Mm-hmm. It might be Duke and Hawk who are making these calls. It might be further up the chain, but as much agency as the Joes have, and as often as someone like decides they're going on vacation so they can disobey orders and go rescue a Joe who's captive. The Joes have to go where they're assigned, and soldiers have to go where they're assigned. And a few weeks ago, I was rereading issues like 5 and 6 and 7 of the Nam, which Larry Hama edited. And there's a scene where the platoon, the squad, I'm sorry, I'm not getting the term right. All of our ensemble of main characters, they're out in the bush, and the people who've been injured get a medical evac. They're helicoptered back, and the commanding officer is a real jerk, and he has not authorized everyone else to get on the helicopters. They got to walk. It's going to take them days, and they've been out in the bush, and people have been injured, and they're hungry and they're tired and they're wet because it's raining. And they finally get back, and they just want to collapse, take showers, eat, and sleep, and they are immediately sent back out. So, if Hama writes this into, he did not write the Nam, he was the editor, but if Hama's a vet and Doug Murray's a vet, and Doug Murray wrote this scene into the Nam, and Hama wrote a similar scene into G.I. Joe, it does feel like it is something that has been observed or experienced. And we have also seen scenes a little like this throughout G.I. Joe comics written by Hama, where the Joes are not offered a ride home or immediately have to go somewhere else at the end of a mission, and don't get a hot meal and more than 3 hours of rest. So and I really enjoyed the final panel of this comic on page 20, because Stalker looks reserved here, and he's giving bad news. Sorry, you got to go back. You're the people that do this mission. And the Joes, the 4 Joes plus the 2 pilots who've picked them up, there's not a lot of detail in those drawings, and Paul Peleteier didn't go crazy with body language of disappointment and slumped shoulders and frowny faces and aw shucks finger snapping. But this sucks, and everyone knows it. But that's the job.
Indeed, it was this page here that sort of felt like I had a bit of a Hama colloquialism and a Hammer time at the same time, which was here where Stalker is saying, you only have 1 hour to do the 3 S's. Only 2 for you, Helix. grab clean BDUs, weapons, and field gear, and a quick hot meal will load ammo, supplies, and commo gear while you wait. So we're getting that sort of a bit of the slang from Hama. We're getting that aspect of looking after your gear and yourself. Always trying to get that hot meal and grab that while you can, man. And also there's a bit of logistics that you can't just immediately fly out. They do have to load the ammo and supplies and stuff. So we had the 3 S's, which are obviously, I don't like swearing on this, but let's say shit, shower, and shave. Helix only has to do 2. Shower and shave, maybe, I don't know. And and then we've also got them grabbing clean BDUs, battle dress uniform, being the camouflage combat uniform worn by U.S. Armed Forces personnel.
Mark, does Helix have a microchip in her brain? Am I just making that up?
You might be making that up.
Isn't she different?
Yeah, she's kind of got this situational awareness, battlefield awareness, kind of superpower.
Okay.
More so in the IDW continuity.
Okay. I thought for a second that maybe she, got more time or less time to clean the USB port in the back of her head. But I'm making that up. That is not. She's not a cyborg. She's just has great visual and spatial acuity.
But I did in this, when we're talking about this scene still, as she's coming off the Tomahawk, they say, "How are you holding up, Helix?" And she says, "Nothing that a weekend at Spa won't fix, Multo." And I think that is Torpedo saying that he could do with a massage. But I thought Helix, very capable, very focused military person, martial arts expert, etc. I don't know in necessarily my expectation of the character that should be wanting a weekend at a spa. I think she might get a bit bored by that. No one to beat up. I don't know.
All right, what other scenes should we dig into a little bit here? There's this neat bit where I'm once or twice recently I've said I'd love to see the description of this in Hama's plot that the artist interpreted, and then it turned out that was not in the plot, and the artist just staged it that way because the artist was very good visual storyteller. So I'm gonna make this assumption again and just assume I'm right. On page 3 of the comic, as Mindbender pulls up in this stolen ambulance to the Revanche base with the geodesic dome behind it, and he speaks to the guard at the gate, who it turns out is a robot whose sort of jaw separates from its face, and it goes from speaking itself to sort of playing through like an internal speaker, Alpha 001's dialogue, and it's the guard's faceplate flips up, and its robot eyes beneath it are projectors, and it projects this hologram in front of it of Alpha 001's face. And then Alpha 001 is saying, "We are doing a clean sweep on all Cobra influences here on Cobra Island. We don't require your services. Please leave." And then the next panel, the final panel of this page, it's a little bit of a reverse angle. We're just about over the shoulder from this guard who is, again, still projecting this hologram of the communication broadcast from Alpha 001 in Florida. And Mindbender is responding, "Hold on, I'm offering all my proprietary brainwave scanner technology." And I thought that's just a neat visual bit. You know, if it was a Televiper pulling guard duty, he would hold up his video camera, which is not a giant laser gun, Tim, in 1986, and Mindbender would just look at the screen. Or in more recent Joe comics, maybe a Televiper or some other Viper would just hold up a tablet, like a Cobra tablet. And I thought, I don't think we've seen this before with soldiers and robots that work in Revanche, doing projection from their robot eyeballs after their faces fold upward to reveal the robot within. And it's only 2 panels. It's not a big plot point. It's just a small, cool detail. And I thought neat.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we've seen like maybe hologram projectors before in that kind of environment, but normally it would be like from a desk or something projecting up or that kind of thing. So I don't exactly remember that off the top of my head. Diana did make a comment in the chat about my previous asides about Helix saying that she wanted to go to a spa. Diana says, "Why wouldn't she go to a spa? Tough women and men appreciate massages, hot tubs, and such. Football players get the same in the locker room." Yeah, but football players aren't tough, are they? But I think it's more just about, for me, I think it's maybe just sort of just playing into a stereotype that, you know, it's the girls, they love spas, men, they enjoy, you know, beer and a fist fight or whatever they do to relax.
I think we're calling Larry Hama a sexist jerk. Is that what just happened?
In summary, yeah.
Diana makes a good point. All the Joes would appreciate various kinds of R&R, and torpedo muskrat wetsuit. Who is it? Does want a massage. Hey, fun trick, folks. If you feel like telling your friends that going to get a massage, it's wetsuit. Diana is correcting us. Wetsuit says he wants a massage. Folks, if you feel like telling your friends that getting massage sounds too frou-frou or fancy, just rephrase it. Just tell them that you're going to a massage therapy appointment. Because now it sounds sort of like you're going to see the doctor, but for your muscles.
Diana says Larry was prepared for your reaction. It was definitely the most controversial element of any issue he's ever written, I think. Outrage. What next? Should we take a trip to Scotland, Tim?
Yeah, two big. These, in some ways, these are the most important scenes of the issue, because these are the resolution of of the big stuff from the last previous issues, whereas the Joe's getting off a plane and getting back on a plane. That's not window dressing. The cover is window dressing. But anyway, yes. Okay, so Mark, Destro and the Baroness and Cobra Commander have dinner in Scotland at Destro's castle, and Destro isn't eating, and the Baroness is in a motorized wheelchair, an electric scooter. Excuse me.
Professor X.
Sorry,
cosplay.
I think the phrase "someone isn't in a wheelchair, someone is using a wheelchair." My apologies. And Destro looks really serious in this scene. So, one, is there anything that I should be getting from this bit of dialogue where Cobra Commander says, I noticed that Destro doesn't have a setting that he's not eating. And I'm sure that in Larry Hama's plot, he calls out that the plates of food are in front of the Baroness and Cobra Commander and not Destro. And then Baroness says, the Laird prefers to dine in private. And Destro says, continuance of an old family tradition, I'm afraid. Please do not take it personally. Is that because that would have required Destro to take his mask off and he's not going to do that in front of Cobra Commander? Or is this something else about the sort of shame of the Destro family masks? What am I missing?
I suspect it's possibly could be two things, either or both. That obviously they've got this mask and as the family tradition, and particularly in the olden days, it would have been a more rigid mask that wouldn't necessarily, allow for him to open and close his mouth and eat in a way that would have any sort of level of decorum attached to it. And then you've probably got this, I guess, a potential tradition where maybe as a ruler or someone in a position of power, that there might be people out to get you. And therefore, eating puts you in a place of vulnerability where people could potentially put something into your food and poison you. And then, so maybe it could be related to that, but probably the mask is a more obvious component of that.
What strikes me about this scene is that Cobra Commander just got beaten up. He was generally defeated. He was specifically captured, and he was really beaten up by Destro in not the previous numbered issue, but the previous issue by story. And here his face looks a little scratched up, and he was wearing battle armor. And I don't think I need him to have, his arm in a cast or a sling or, crutches. But I was aware here in this scene that if you didn't, because no one says, after the savage beating Destro gave you 2 issues ago, he doesn't want to eat in front of you. Or, oh, Destro, can I have a pillow for my chair? My butt hurts because, we just fist fought for an entire issue recently. So no one says what happened in the dialogue. Oh, you tried to kill Destro. He's really mad at you still. Oh, Destro beat you up and you are... Does anyone specifically say that Cobra Commander here is a prisoner? Because he's a prisoner.
Yeah. I don't think that it's specifically called out. I mean, there's obviously the reference to tension, the fact that, Baroness in particular has a grudge against him, given that she's just been recently shot and with this life-threatening injury, and that she's taking it more calmly than expected. But yeah, they sort of talk about a partnership negotiated with integrity. Yeah, so not a specific shout out that he's a prisoner, but having read the previous issues, I guess it's implied.
I mean, let's spell it out. 2 issues ago, when they fought, Destro beat Cobra Commander senseless and dragged him out, right? Or carried him out. So I'm observing several things here. A, it's this disguise that Cobra Commander is in when he's not in one of his uniforms. Way back in issue 55, when he first appeared this way, it definitely seemed like a disguise, like a wig and a hat, a funny hat, and fake mustache. We've seen it so many times that I have started to wonder if this is actually just what he looks like under his costume. I think to some extent it doesn't matter what he looks like under his costume. It's who he is and his costume. That's who he is. So whether he's wearing this disguise or a different disguise, or this is what he looks like, it's all sort of a placeholder, But I really like Destro's pained expression on the second page of this scene, where he says, "Do not be deceived. There's no forgiveness involved here." And then he refers to this partnership that they're going to work out, which again is this really indirect way. I sort of wonder if, I actually think what's happening is Hama, when he wrote 2 issues ago, and Destro says, we're going to figure out what our relationships is going forward. Cobra Commander who tried to kill my lady and I just beat up. And then in this issue, I think Hama is still figuring out what the future Destro, Cobra Commander, Cobra, and Mars relationship is. My brain keeps going to the Devil's Due run. Mark, help me out. Is this after issue 25 of the Devil's Due run that Cobra Commander takes over Mars? Or am I thinking of America's Elites?
You're thinking of America's Elites, yeah, just after the Hunt for Cobra Commander bit, where it's trying to think of the sequencing. Is it the end of Sins of the Mother that Cobra Commander sort of takes over Mars? And
certainly there are other things going on there in that continuity, because Destro has a mistress and a son, and the Baroness has been pushed out, and there are more dreadnoks, etc. But my brain sort of, when Destro makes this promise 2 issues ago and refers to it here, I've been starting to imagine, I don't think Destro has ever been angrier or has ever had sort of the excuse to be angrier in a Larry Hama G.I. Joe comic than, and Cobra Commander has tried to kill him before, right? Let's not forget issues 116, 117, 118, Destro Search and Destroy, where the cover of 116 is Destro in front of a wanted poster that shows Destro. And so I was thinking, okay, Cobra Commander has had a certain dynamic with Cobra for the last, dozens of issues, Skybound and IDW. And, is it time for a change? Oh, is he going to mess up? So, at first I thought it was going to be Serpentor Khan and Mindbender. Like, oh, Cobra Commander's out, or Cobra's going to get split in half, or, Cobra Commander's going to go to Destro and it's going to be Mars against the Serpentor Khan Cobra, right? And what happened was Serpentor Khan got wrapped up, and now I sort of expect Destro to take over Cobra, the Iron Grenadiers to take over Cobra. And whatever happens, I want there to be, a scene where it's explicitly stated, and I want there to be some kind of dramatic visual or visuals. And that might be, a full page with a whole bunch of Cobra and Iron Grenadiers vehicles all in the same location. And Destro's explaining, like, well, now the squads of the combined armies will be deployed together. Or I don't know. He's like disassembling a bunch of his tanks and his twos and replacing them with demons. But I think back to issue 90, there's a whole scene in issue 90 of G.I. Joe, the Marvel run, when all the Cobra brass assemble at Broca Beach and talk about the power structure, right? Voltar and Fred in the Cobra Commander armor, and Destro, and I think Mindbender, and I forget, maybe Darklon are there, Major Blood, and they're all just talking about sort of who goes where, because Cobra has all these different locations and who's in charge of what. And that was my first issue, and I remember thinking, neat, because that was a weird first issue, because it's in the middle of all this long going storylines. And so I'm hoping, my very general hope for this new Destro and Cobra Commander status quo is that it's very cool.
Yeah, and so I think they sort of refer to it to some degree in the last issue about sort of a bit of a hostile takeover almost. And the page that I've stuck on the screen at the moment sort of is hinting at that a little bit, where you've got a Cobra Stinger, and what they've done is just spray painted over the side of it Mars to kind of suggest almost that hostile takeover kind of thing. It will be interesting to see how Destro solidifies his grasp of Cobra overall, if it is more of a hostile takeover and less of a partnership, let's say, it was let's see a fun new organizational chart in a future issue as well, and just reestablish who's who and who's where in Cobra. It's
listeners, Mark has just put on screen a few panels from this is issue 90 of G.I. Joe. Yeah, so this is Destro pointing to a flow chart. Voltar, the chart. He says who's in charge of what and where they're going to go, right? For example, the Dreadnoks will report to Zorana, and the Cobra intelligence specialists will report to Baroness. And then under this, there are a few panels of people reacting. Like, I don't like this flow chart at all. I can't report to so-and-so. This is one of my favorite pages in all of G.I. Joe. Drawn by Mark Bright and Randy Amberlin in my first issue of G.I. Joe. I am certainly biased.
Now, why am I going to work with that four-eyed floozy?
You want the scientist of my renown to share
etc. We had some good real-time feedback from Diana about that scene with Cobra Commander as well, and talking about, does it look like he's kind of in a state of being, beaten up? His glasses were supposed to be broken in one lens. You can see it in the inking lines, but it got lost a little in the colouring. And she also observes that every time we see that face of Cobra Commander's with the moustache, the round glasses and the beret, that Larry has specified that it is the disguise. There have been discussions and semi-debates as to why he still uses it. The bottom line is that is what Larry wants. Perhaps it's the face of someone he knew and disliked in the past. Who knows? It's his call, of course. But I get, if it's a disguise that you're wearing all of the time, and you go, well, which one's Cobra Commander? Well, he's the one wearing the beret and the moustache and the glasses. To some degree, it becomes a little bit moot.
No, but there are two kinds of disguise. There's a disguise where no one knows who it is because he blends in. But then there's the disguise where you just don't know what he actually looks like. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's always been the latter. Yeah. It's just another mask.
Let's assume that the moustache is real, because every time he seems to take off his, hoods or whatever, that it's there. And if Destro has just been torturing him and whatnot, it's very kind of him to give him a moustache, a fake moustache from.
I don't know. I actually think that, I'm not saying this as a joke, that Larry Hama's Cobra Commander always has a kit somewhere nearby with the glasses, the beret, maybe the wig, and the mustache. This guy was and Diana says if he ever needs to disappear, he takes off the disguise.
But that could be take off your glasses, take off your hat, shave off the moustache, and then maybe cut your hair, even get rid of the ponytail, and then who would know?
Those things take longer than just taking off a fake mustache.
But
okay.
Who's this new presenter of Talking Joe?
Wait,
you've never seen him before?
Where'd my host go? Listeners, that was a hilarious visual joke where Mark took off his hat and glasses and suddenly looked like someone else. Let's talk about the 3-page scene in Destro's castle in Scotland that takes place after dinner. It's unusual for comics because there's almost no dialogue. There are 2.8 pages without dialogue.
Yep.
Which is pretty unusual for comics, although not that unusual for G.I. Joe. And at the very end, Destro says something which caps the scene. And in this scene, Baroness does something and makes a choice. And on the one hand, it feels very Larry Hama. And on the other hand, it feels, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, very not the Baroness. So, Mark, what is your take on this scene?
Yeah.
What does she do, and what's your take?
So I'll preface it that I had a tiny bit of confusion initially, because we sort of see the Baroness in the chair, going away from the dinner table, leaving behind Cobra Commander and Destro. And then we cut to her still, moving in the chair, getting out of it, and then going to a room, and then there's someone in bed. So I did have a bit of a short amount of, working out what was going on, that we've moved forward in time, and it isn't the case that we've gone straight from Baroness leaving the previous room to sort of emerging here, that there is later on, and the person in bed sleeping that the Baroness has opened the door to sort of stand over the top of and threaten to stab with a knife. This is not her threatening him, but the potential of the action. It is Cobra Commander, and we're established with kind of the silhouette, the hint of the hair and the moustache and stuff, but also those round glasses, most significantly on the bedside table, which do seem to have a crack in them, as Diana pointed out. So we've got red illuminated Baroness suggesting kind of anger, and then she sort of pulls away, doesn't make the lunge to kill Cobra Commander, and then Destro is behind her, almost letting her make the choice, and ready there for her when she changes her mind and doesn't go through with that assassination attempt. He says quietly, "I knew you could do it, my dear."
Okay, so there's a theme in Larry Hama's writing that he comes back to sometimes, which is forgiveness. The Joes forgive Firefly in issue 250. Dawn forgives the police officer in Springfield who murdered her parents, or saves him at the very least, which is a kind of forgiveness. Many other examples. And I don't think this one here with the Baroness not killing Cobra Commander is technically forgiveness. I think what it is, which is why it does work for me now that I think about it, is that Cobra Commander is a guest or a prisoner in Destro's home, and you can't kill that person. Mm-hmm. That's breaking the rules. And Destro has offered free, not passage, a free stay. You are a guest in my guest room, and you're kind of a prisoner, and I'm not going to execute you or murder you, nor is my lady, right, lady? At the same time, and the reason why this scene initially, I had to think about this, and now I think, oh, this scene's quite powerful and it really works for me. The reason why at first it didn't work for me is I thought, okay, wait, in issue 30-something, didn't Baroness shoot Storm Shadow in the water? Oh, in issue, what is it, 106, doesn't the Baroness shoot Scarlett in the head? Oh, in issue 93, doesn't the Baroness push a button and activate a bomb on an ice cream truck and blow up half the Dreadnoks? No, she's cold-blooded, and she tries to kill not just like Joes or Cobras in general, but marquee characters. And just a few issues ago, not literally this man, Cobra Commander, but on his orders, right? Wasn't it? It was the other one who shot her? Who shot her?
It was the CG Cobra Commander in the battlesuit that shot her.
Okay, the imposter, the not bad imposter, the guy that Cobra Commander had sent to act as him. And so she, in addition to her cold-bloodedness that we have seen many times in this series before, and also general angry revenge, she's got a good reason to pull that dagger and plunge it into that sleeping guy's heart. But he is a guest in Destro's home, and she also lives there, sort of, so it's her home. And you can't kill your guests, even if they're your prisoners. And also, I actually don't, even if Hama sets up a like twice as much evidence and logic and thirsty urge for someone to kill Cobra Commander in a scene like this in his own comic, I still think Hama's not going to kill Cobra Commander in his own comic, right? He did it when Hasbro made him, and he didn't want to, back in issue 58. But the character's too interesting, and if you remove the character, then suddenly you have all this, this conflict with Destro and the Baroness, and that would be interesting. What would Destro do with the rest of Cobra? But it's more interesting. It's more interesting if if every 5 issues or 5 years, Batman can fight the Joker in different ways and for different levels of stakes. And as much as I want to see Batman just say, I should just really kill the Joker, I would save us all a lot of trouble. And that one panel would be really satisfying. The next issue, I'd think, oh, well, now the Joker can't show up and give Batman a hard time.
Diana chips in bread and salt and Destro, which I think is implying that, you've got that tradition of hospitality to look after your guests and not kill them, probably, is the very least you could do. If I'm interpreting that correctly, Diana.
Do you want to talk more about this scene? Or we wrap up that scene?
Yeah, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up in Scotland, and if you've got something to.
Oh no, I wanted to jump back to Snake Eyes.
Okay.
Snake Eyes does not speak.
No.
In this issue, and I think every issue, or just about every issue, since he came back from the dead, Larry Hama has given him 1 or 2 or 3 brief lines, and I would prefer he not speak. He's certainly allowed to speak because when he was regenerated, his vocal cords were regenerated as well. But there's certainly an opportunity here where when the ninjas get off of the plane, it's Scarlett who says, "It's nice to be back. Why'd we come back?" Snake Eyes might have said that, and then when they meet this family that they're going to impersonate, there's some body language and exchanges, like Jinx says, "I'm Jinx. I think this will work out just fine," she says to the person she's about to impersonate. And Snake Eyes is shaking the hands of that Crimson Guardsman that he is going to impersonate, just like the cover. And I thought, oh, there's space there for a word balloon, like, what size is your jacket? Or I cannot wait to impersonate you, or whatever. Nice to meet you. And at the same time, I'm glad he didn't say anything. But I just wanted to note that the new Snake Eyes who can speak in this issue does not. For the chart that Mark is going to, the graphic that Mark's going to make for our next episode, all the issues where Snake Eyes can speak, does he?
Yeah, I think most of them, definitely not all, because I have been editing in jingles and things to illuminate where it is that he speaks. There was a bit of an oddity in this sequence that I don't know entirely worked, which was when they talk about who's going to be impersonating who. It says that Jinx will be Nina, hairstyle and makeup will do the trick, and glasses will help. The oddity there being that it's I think the mum that wears glasses, whereas this child that Jinx will be impersonating, certainly in this sequence, does not seem to be wearing glasses.
What's the no prize? Oh, you know what? I think the no prize is that Jinx's eyesight is a little bit it's not 20/20 anymore, and Stalker knows this. And what he's really saying is, when you do your hairstyle and makeup to look more like Nina, wear your glasses so you can see yourself in the mirror. I will accept my no prize at the address of my store. Skybound, Marvel. Did someone have a big stack of old no prizes?
Oh, right. Here we go. Diana's observation is that Nina isn't Asian and glasses distort that. So Jinx will have an easier time passing as a non-Asian person if she is wearing glasses.
Very good. Thank you, Diana. That is a helpful. I would still like a no prize. I just want to say once again, on the final 2 pages, we see Wild Bill and Lift Ticket being pilot and co-pilot of the very cool Tomahawk, and I'm always holding out hope that one of them or both of them will do something more integral to a mission that they're on besides taking Joe's to and from places. Maybe they set down and jump out and help, with guns and climbing and taking out bad guys, or maybe the Tomahawk gets shot down and they're stuck on a mountain and they gotta, if I'm pitching a special missions issue, is this the letters page where like 3 people say bring back special missions?
They do say that in the letters page, and at one point they say, so Jason from Los Angeles says, a couple of requests. Number one, can you bring back special missions? And editor Alex Antone replies, it's been discussed! Exclamation mark. There you go, Tim.
Cool. This is where I get greedy, having just survived 7 weeks of so many episodes of the show. I mean, so many great G.I. Joe comics. You could in a future month do a month of issues where other people write and draw not wordless silent missions, but self-contained special missions. You could have Hama somehow involved, like he's sort of the editor or the co-plotter of some special missions issues. You could have him write a bunch of extra issues that could be published separately. This is my preference with these 4 options. You could also just have a series of issues that are all self-contained, written by Hama, just published as the next, 4 or 5 or 6 issues, which IDW did on 2 occasions. There was Untold Tales, and then there was a story arc that was just called Special Missions, not to be confused with the title, Special Missions. So anyway, Alex Antone, I hope it keeps being discussed, and as more and more letter writers say, bring back Special Missions, I hope someone makes a decision.
And does it. Don't just talk about it. Do it.
Yes.
Do it.
I think I've run out of...
Yeah.
I think I've run out of things to say about this issue.
Me too. So we will be continuing talking about G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, when the next issue 317, that's the way that numbers work, when that comes out on the June the 4th, 2025, we are promised a brand new look to Dr. Mindbender on the front of that issue. So that is going to be quite exciting. And also we'll be covering the other Joe issues from Skybound as they come out. Next up is the Beachhead issue number 7 from the new art team on the Skybound Energon Universe book. So do keep an eye out for that. You can find Talking Joe in all of the normal places. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website that links to those places. A reminder that we are typically on YouTube with most episodes, either with full video, maybe even as a live stream like this one. So do head on over to YouTube if you're not there already, and make sure that you click that subscribe button. We are within touching distance of 900 subscribers as at the time of recording. And you can also find us as audio only. That tends to be a slightly tighter edited version that gets rid of all of the mistakes we made, which, as you can tell, are infrequent, and also sort of any big delays, fumbles, and that distract. So that's the audio only version. We are also on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane V2. This version has a Tim.
I think he's covered in silver chrome. I think he's a vehicle.
Okay. Yes,
really shiny.
Right.
Comes a parachute. Comes with a same body as Shane version 1, different head, new colors, shiny silver parachute. That's it.
Okay, there's the Skyforce version. That's nice to see. Infinite Entertainment and our newest member, Patrick. They get early access to episodes, some exclusive content, and a warm glow inside, knowing that they are supporting the channel. Tim, where can you be found when you are not talking to me about G.I. Joe?
YouTube, Atomic Abe. That's the channel. that I run with my two partners who are in New York with video essays about television and film, smart and funny. I own a brick and mortar comic book store where I am right now. That's Hub Comics in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I write about G.I. Joe at my blog, arealamericanbook.com. Can I sing more of the mask theme this time?
I mean, if you want to just do a little bit of a scat.
No,
and,
it's okay. It's okay. It's not the wrong universe.
Okay, so I think that is us done. But before we go, Tim, please remind us of something very important that people should have in their minds throughout the next week until they hear from us again.
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.